a panel of scientists sitting there, scientists and engineers, because I tried my foray into science. I took my bachelor, undergraduate with physics, math, and geology, and then even went further into my master's in geology, hoping to become a scientist or a geologist. But after 6 months, I realized it was too tough for me. So I joined business. I went into the management field, and since then I have been studying. My colleague, co-author Darshan, we both have in business faculty. We teach business, management, international business. So what I really want to share our experience with you today, a case study. Basically what we felt was a very strong, when you hear about business schools, there is a strong negativity also, okay? There's a positivity because most of the people make decent money. So that is a positive impact. But there is a negativity also. The negativity or the criticism comes. So what criticism basically comes is some people, one area even, actually I read an article in a Harvard Business Review of this month, which says that business schools are more like professional schools. They should be treated like professional schools instead of being treated as a university or a college, because the inquiry that, or the learning process that is more like akin to a professional school. On the other hand, the other criticism that we get is in the area of, okay, let's move on, and then I think I should address that. Basically, how we are going to cover this paper will be introduction. We'll talk a little bit about service learning, then develop community partnership. What is our case study, inquiry-based learning, informing impact, and the possibilities. And we would very much like, I think for Darshan and me, it will be very useful if we could have feedback from you. And so what we would try to finish our presentation in about, I think we have about 40 minutes, right, Darshan?
Yes.
So we'll try to finish a presentation in about 33 minutes or so that we have 7 minutes to have question answer. Because my concern is that is where we will learn from you. You know, what do you think? Engineers, then scientists, and from other disciplines, what do you think of this approach? So that's what we'll try to abridge it. And so next 33 minutes, we are going to basically introduce the concept to you in business community, how we are teaching courses, how we are designing our courses, and then we'll, if you have time, we'll even might share that our own experiences. But that is where we are going. All right, so that's a typical keynote address at a graduation ceremony, or commencement. In America, we call it commencement. In India, we used to call it convocation. But in America, when I came, I learned to change my terminology, because convocation in American, at least in a business schools, means very different from commencement. So that is what I'm sure all of us attended these long speeches by the keynote speakers. But really, at that time, at least when I talk from my perspective, my eyes were filled with dreams, what I can achieve in my life, what I will do, what impact will I make, and whether I get my dreams, whether I'll be able to achieve my all aspirations. And as you say, as you go out into the world, I predict that you will gradually and imperceptibly forget all you ever learned at this university. All right? Okay, so I'm taking you towards the criticism, and then we'll see from there how we hope to evolve it. Business school, education in business school. And I love this line, all right? So yes, we produce graduates, but there is some manufacturing defects, Okay, so and we accept it. I think we are aware. And more we hear the criticism, we are willing to listen, and especially today, in the last 5-7 minutes, we would love to have your input. Where do you think, how you feel about business education? Okay, and then you might find something useful from us that you can transfer to an engineering school or production of knowledge in the scientific field. The main criticism of the business school or business education comes to it's very narrow. It's very narrow in the sense that we focus too much. Let me see this, if this works. Yeah, I think so. That we, the criticism that I hear very often is that business education is very narrow. And also, I think truly and aptly, I think I agree, is that our focus finally comes on maximization of shareholders or enterprise's value. And enterprise value we really measure by usually, I think you all must be aware of the stock market. If it's a public company, we measure it by how the share value is. And so in the business school, somehow our focus is on maximization of shareholders' net worth. All right? First it was enterprise net worth, but then we realize is when you talk of enterprise's value, it has two elements. One is the shareholder, the owner's equity, and other is the debt. And generally there's a conflict between what shareholders want and what the people who lend you money want. So then there was a confusion, and then Jensen and these people in corporate governance, they said it's easier if we really start focusing on shareholder or the owner's value. All right? So from there we move, and that is what's happened. In business school, our focus is whatever you do in the final analysis, whether you're increasing pricing, increasing the market share, or you're creating new products, but finally the person who's invested money in your company, in the enterprise that started, are you increasing the value for that? So that is the narrowness. Okay? We talk about other stakeholders, but we don't talk as much maybe as we should, or the rest of the community feels. The second is simplistic solutions. We tend to find, this is business graduates tend to find very simplistic solutions. The problems are much more complex. There are many more dimensions, but we say, do this, 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 not really going deeper into what could it be other impact in other areas. And the third one is inability to install human values. As I said, that our focus on financial results and how to achieve that many times might be taking us away from from the human values. How to instill human values in our graduates. So these are the three and the areas that we hear often that business schools or the graduates that we produce is an issue. Okay? And of course, the fourth you might have heard, but this, I mean, it's not written here, but of course, many of our graduates, especially when they come from Ivy League schools like Harvard or Stanford or Princeton, they enter and they immediately, the moment they enter, they feel that they should be the CEO or the chief executive officer. That's another issue, all right? We will not be talking about that. But I'm going to talk about the approach that we are talking here is academic service learning. This is in a way addresses all these three issues. And that's why first, I mean, I taught it and I became a champion of the whole idea. And then Darshan, I talked to Darshan, she joined in, and now we both are, I think, pretty strong champions. So I will introduce the whole idea to you now. What we say here, this is the area we are talking. And the term that we are using is academic service learning, or ASL. So you'll often hear the term just ASL or this longer term. Basically, we are addressing all these three. What we say is, in case we could devise a pedagogy which combines or addresses all these three issues, first of all, it must be academic. All right? Yes, sure, because that is why the students are coming to our classes or our school. Second is, we want them to address, be involved with the civic. How is the civic engagement? How can we make them aware that besides profit maximization, or besides the wealth maximization, you should really look at other dimension. And the most important dimension is, what are you doing for your community? Because if we can do something for our community, it can have multiple effect. So we want, and this ASL addresses that. Academic studies, and then third, practical experience. So what the whole concept is, ASL concept is based on, the most fundamental is that instead of giving, generally you'll find in business schools, and I think you will tell us about how it is in engineering schools, there's a very strong weight for a term paper and 1 or 2 term papers besides the exams and everything. Term paper kind of synthesizes whatever you have learned during that particular semester or quarter in that particular course. What we are saying is, let the term paper be, instead of writing, okay, analyze the strategy of Google, or analyze, find the ways or improve the strategy that's adopted by Time Warner, or another, or how did they introduce this product in China. Instead of doing that, if we could give them a term paper that says, look, we want you to engage with local community or an NGO, which is non-government organization. We want you to engage with them and solve their actual problem, or fill the need that they need. If an organization says, I worked with an organization called March of Dimes. People who live in USA will be aware of that. This is one of the largest NGOs. And they said, for example, that we want to involve famous personalities into our activities. How to do that? So what we did was, we created a term paper focusing on that area and covering different concepts. So we'll discuss that further, all right? So basically we are saying students get practical experience, trying to apply the knowledge they learned during the course, and then engage with their community, and it is still within the learning outcomes of the course. Okay, and how does it work? What we are saying again here is, the focus is on service and learning, both, instead of just learning. All right? So this is basically recognition by instructor and by the students or by the learners that our focus is not only just learning here, but doing the service. Beneficiary is recipient and the provider. And how does it work? Service learning will have community service and field education, volunteerism, and internship. Now there is a difference, and I want to distinguish. We are not, when we are doing these projects, we are not seeking volunteers, because volunteer is a very different concept. Volunteer does something which community NGO wants. We are saying, no, first thing what we really want is, we have to keep the learning outcomes of every course clearly in mind. So I go to an NGO and find out what do they need. What is the current need for next 3 months or 6 months? What would they like us to resolve? Help them. Then see that particular need fulfills what kind of learning outcomes, and for which course is that suitable. So ideally what we should be doing, we should be making that particular NGO involvement with that course. So we should not go the opposite way, because the worst thing you can do is students get involved with a community project, but which has nothing to do with the learning outcomes of a course. If a course is on strategy, then I would like to work with an NGO which needs advice or research oriented towards strategy. If the course is in, if an NGO says, we want to understand how to penetrate, how to do fundraising in China, an American NGO wants to do fundraising in China, then I would go for a course which has outcomes like marketing, all right, marketing one idea, and must have international element, because which will involve understanding the Chinese culture or Chinese polity, all right. So this is where, so we will go further from here, and I'll invite Darshan to take on, and she's going to talk about the drawbacks of this, and we'll move from there. Okay. Oh, no, a little more. Okay, sorry. Okay. Now, so this is what we were talking. I just mentioned to you, we identify an organization and initiate contact. So I would do is either as an instructor, or I might do as a coordinator of ASL program, or as the chair of my department. I might say, okay, which are the good NGOs? All right? Or an NGO might hear about it and contact me. So that is the first contact. So we screen the NGOs whether it makes sense to, whether there is some similarity of what we want and what they want. So that's an important part. Initiate, identify and organize and initiate contact. That would be initially the coordinator's responsibility. Sometimes instructor can take the initiative, or the chair can do it, all right? And then we say, match organizational needs with course learning outcomes. What we have basically, each course has very clear learning outcomes. At the end of the semester, the student will be able to describe this, student will be able to analyze this, student will be able to do this. How do the needs of an NGO and that learning outcomes, are they congruent or not? That's very important, as I mentioned to you 5 minutes ago. So if it is strategic need, I'll go to a strategy course. If it is marketing need, I'll go to a marketing course. If it is basically maybe designing a new structure, organizational structure, then I will pick a course which is in organizational design. If it is a question of motivation, then I would rather pick a course which is organizational behavior course, because that's the most important, matching the right course whose outcomes and NGO's needs are congruent. Once you have done that, then we design the whole course. And it's, I must say, we are very closely, all the time, NGO, instructor, and the student, all three are very actively involved in this whole process. Okay? Students get, before our classes start, NGO and the instructor have already discussed how we are going to run in next 4 months or through the semester. And criteria: provide opportunity to develop and apply skills, students develop habits of dependability and cooperation. I think this is perhaps the most important. Instill a sense of purpose. Instill a sense of purpose of learning. Absolutely. You are coming to my school. You're coming here to, if you're in engineering, you're coming here to learning the really engineering knowledge. But really, can you apply to an NGO? How? Because that gives me, instills a sense of purpose. That with this, I was able to arrange help, maybe arrange clean water in some community, or maybe help a community raise funding for the school. I think that if we can instill that, as I said to you, we feel strongly that in the business school, that one of the criticisms of the business school culture is money, money, money. I think that brings that awareness. The very awareness that purpose of my next 30 years of my life or professional career is not just to make money for myself and the shareholder, but it is also to do something for my community. That itself will, I think, improve our business ethos, our polity, hopefully, all right, and engagement with our social people. What kind of project types? Pro bono research and consulting. Basically, we say, look, again the difference, volunteerism and ASL. Volunteerism, you can say, I want to help poor people, I can go work in soup kitchen. A volunteer will be told, okay, then you come and pour the soup for people who need it. For example, in a truck, or prepare a soup. We don't tell the students that. We say no. What we would do is, we'll say, okay, if we are going to help a soup kitchen, we would rather study the logistics, the supply chain. How is the soup distributed? Can that be improved? Can the efficiency of the distribution of a soup kitchen be improved? Or can the motivation of people working as volunteers and paid employees of the NGO be improved? That is what ASL is. So we are not asking our students to do actual work. We are really saying do research relevant to the community and do research in that area and find solutions. Very akin to what a consultant does. So students, even in the undergraduate time, they gain the experience and insight into how does consultant work, how does consultant find a solution, because the implementation finally has to be done by the NGO. Very typical of research and consultancy. So what we feel is that we are addressing this, and it's a pro bono research. They're not getting paid, except for a good grade, hopefully, and direct contact. All right? So what we feel is ASL offers us a good venue, which may need further improvement, and we would love to get input from you, but a venue to address the basic weaknesses of a business school education. It takes us away from, it brings another element besides shareholders' maximization of wealth or my salary increase. It takes away from the narrowness, and it brings us engaged with the community. Okay, and then we say it's not perfect, and Darshan, my co-author, is going to talk about that. But I should introduce my co-author. She works with me in my department. And the beauty of it was yesterday, she and I, after registration, we went for a walk. And we were walking along the road, and there were some flowers. And I said, these are beautiful flowers, you know. She said, yeah, after India, this is the first time I'm seeing the flowers here. I said, yeah, maybe the weather similarity. So I said, let me smell. So I bent down, and she said, don't you have allergy? I said, who knows, let me smell. Let me see how good is it. And I bent to smell, and she sneezed. So I said, I'm going to share this with my whole meeting, that you can't have better co-author. You know, one of them smells, the other sneezes. So I said, Darshan, do you know there's the best proof of our telepathy? We have become a really good co-authors. This is the second time we are working together, okay, on a paper. You know, this is the second paper that we work together. And so I was telling her, I said, I'm going to share this with my, you know. So with all my confidence, trust, Darshan, okay. All yours.
I think you would also need this.
Oh, yeah. Oop.
All right.
Ready?
Ready? Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you for introducing me. All right. So now I will begin with a story. How I was introduced to the concept of ASL. Now you know, Dr. Bedi, he's my co-author. He has been a wonderful person. You know that our wavelength matched so well. Another thing is, one more aspect to it is, he's my boss. right? So what happened, like I was new to the workplace and we had an academic service learning workshop. I attended the workshop and I met a lot of people sharing their experiences about how they taught their service learning course. And I absolutely loved the way Dr. Bedi taught the course. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is awesome, all right? And then what I did, like after he was done sharing his experience, it is very normal for us, right? You just, everyone is going, and I went to him and I said, yeah, this is very nice and this is a wonderful approach, and a kind of, good compliments. But there is a risk of giving compliment to your boss. So he said to me, do you want to teach it? I will introduce you to everyone. Like I know the nonprofit, I know everyone, Lauren will come, she'll help you teach the course. I was like, oh no, oh boy, this is not what I expected. You tell someone you're wearing a nice hat does not mean you give away your hat, it might not fit me. I'm new. So I was kind of worried. I was a bit scared. I was a bit skeptical, both about myself, teaching ASL, and about ASL itself. So how to say boss the same thing? So I said to him, yes, one day I will do this, right? So one day, that means not now, but yeah, maybe later on, once I evolve, I'll be able to teach it. So I thought he'll forget eventually, and I'll also forget, and I won't teach this. It did not happen. He came back to me. March of Times, the one person from March of Times, she called me and she has a problem and she has a wonderful problem, and we want you to design a 200-level course around that idea, and it would be wonderful. I was like, oh my God, you're talking about that ASL concept, 200-level course? You taught 400-level course. That's not fair. You taught you were teaching the more capable student who were providing consulting, and I'll be teaching the people who don't know much. So I was kind of a little bit nervous, a little bit skeptical. So my concern, then I read more literature about ASL, like what is there in the literature? And I wanted to know more about the approach before going into it, before diving into water, what the water looks like. When I read the literature, there was a clear criticism in the literature. First criticism, there is some people have used the hyphen between service and learning, and some people don't use that hyphen between the service and learning. There is, in the service learning is a term, service learning. The hyphen is the key, and not all service lead to learning. I knew it. I remember serving at a lot of places where I did not learn a thing. So first of my fear was, I read somewhere about ASL that if you take a student, take a trash, take a community trash and throw it in a trash can. This is a volunteerism. This is not service learning. They just took a trash, put it in the trash can, that's it, right? They didn't learn anything. Now in service learning, we are moving one step forward. You take a trash, then observe everywhere what's going on, write a reflection, what can be done about it. Now if there are very high chances that I take a trash, there is assumption. Every service accompanied with some learning. But what do you learn? Maybe I learned, maybe one of my students, after taking the trash, she realized this professor is ridiculous, she's crazy, she's out of her mind, and I won't take her course again, I didn't learn anything, and I won't do it again. This can be a learning as well. So, so here with the service learning, I'm not creating any positive impact. With service learning, I'm creating a negative impact on people that I did that once and I'm not going to do it again. My first fear. Second fear, personal faculty agenda and forced volunteerism. I'm not sure anyone has forced into volunteerism. It's not a very pleasant experience if you, if you have passed through it. The point is that, for example, if, it's just a basic example. I have heard about a charity of iPad donations to nursing homes kind of stuff. And I feel like, yeah, it can help a lot to the nursing home. And maybe I know the people there and I am passionate about that. But should I force my passion on my students? Making it essential component? And the first thing that came to my mind, one of my students, he's a real student. And he has been the person who is a 19-year-old who looks 16-year-old, but who talks like a 50-year-old. So, you have all different personalities in a class. So the moment he starts speaking, I am being nervous. Oh my God, now he's going to ask me a question that's going to be kind of scary. So I imagine him asking me the question that, Professor Desaai, you are telling me I have 2 jobs. My father died last year. I'm supporting my mom with a 2 job. I personally don't own an iPad. Now, I personally know in my country many people don't get food to eat and they have done nothing wrong. They can't feed their children and you want me to serve these people? Do charity for iPad? Is that fair? And that I have to do if I want to take your course? Do you think is that fair in any way? I imagine all the, this is something about the brain. Brain works, imagine all the worst thing that can happen. The first, then what I think is workload issues. They will have to work twice. I'll have to work more. What I'll get in return? Or what my students will get in return? Because here the students will have to work on academic concepts. If they don't know the academic concepts, there is no way they can provide the service that they're expected to provide, right? In addition, if they provide service, this is the extra time they are spending. It is not either or. It is and. What am I extra thing I'm giving to the student? I'm promising that I'll give you all A. I can't do that, right? So these were my concern. And when I saw the literature, I thought I might find some way in the literature to solve these issues about the service learning. When I saw literature, I got surprised. Literature talked about despite these criticisms, service learning is, there is more of empirical data, more of empirical research done, quantitative research, that whenever service learning is applied in an academic situation, it enhances the learning outcome. So, you forget about this criticism. Despite this criticism, there is empirical data that support that yes, it will enhance learning outcome. Is that fair? I can't buy it completely from my heart. So we realized there should be a way we can, and his approach was different than the traditional service learning. So, and one thing, despite all my, worst brain, I had one thing in my heart, that if Rahul says something, there must be something right about it. You see, that was the kind of trust that I said, okay, I'll do it. There must be something good. I will give it a try. And the worst case that can happen is I'll fail. I'm okay. I'm ready for it. So that's how we started. So we figured out, now I have only a few minutes left, but yeah, I shared a story, but that's okay. Then we decided, instead of giving them, teaching the concepts first and then telling them to apply concepts later, first, why don't we begin with the problem and then give the students a freedom to approach the problem the way they want. So that way I'm not forcing volunteerism. That way, if they are doing more work, it's their wish. It's not I'm forcing them. They are driven by the problem. They're approaching the problem from their own viewpoints, and they are trying to solve it. So one of my problem workload issues, I will work a lot if I am doing something I love. Second problem, faculty the forced volunteerism, no, I'm not doing it. I'm giving you at least some freedom to work on, approach something the way you want. Service at the cost of learning, no. We are defining the problem and you are going to solve it, and I am there to help you whenever you want any kind of help. This is the whole approach is all about. So that way, I love the book written by Professor Grannon Gill, and he asked a very fundamental question: can the knowledge creation be separated from knowledge dissemination? Here you see, this is the guy. Does that look familiar to you guys? You see? But it's here. You see this? Some people have books, some people don't have books, some people sleeping, some people chatting. It looks a very familiar situation, right? This is a 13th or 14th century classroom where the knowledge creation has been completely separated from knowledge dissemination, and that's the problem. And if we involve student in the process of knowledge creation, then we can address the problem. So instead of saying, I'll do research, I'll find the knowledge and I'll push it on you, I will say that, okay, we don't know something. Let's figure it out. Maybe you are the first who will tell me what's the answer. I don't know. So it starts with ignorance. It does not start with I know everything mentality. So the naive view of this approach is like, my students, the inquiry-based approach can be misinterpreted like this. Students are researchers, students are consultants, the student see the world full of problems, they will address it, they'll become genius, they'll become Einsteins. No, that won't happen. They need a facilitator. Here, non-profits, the community partners, instructor, and students. We all have to be on the same page when we set expectations. There should be very clear expectations set before we move on. Then next phase, before you see the world, there has to be in your mind, like, what are you going to observe on your journey? Then your students do research, they take action, they make reflection, and they need constant feedback, not only from me, also from community partner. Rahul introduced me to Lauren. She was an awesome person. I realized that what we gave to her, she returned more than what we gave. She provided such a wonderful input. She visited my class 3 times. She constantly gave feedback. So it was not only instructors' feedback, it was community partners' feedback, equally wanted, equally desired in this approach. And when you combine all three, community partner, instructor, and students' effort, then you will have a desired impact of the problem-based approach. Do I have time? 5 more minutes? All right. So the impact of this approach, the very basic impact is, once the students are more working with the community partners, right? They are trying to approach the real life problem. So that way students are connected more with the complex reality. What we did in our class was we studied how corporations engage with non-profit. I was teaching not-for-profit management course. So when the students met different people, in the 6th week, I had 6 different students who came to me and asked me, Professor, I have a guest speaker for you. Can I invite them? I had 6 different guest speakers, because students are working in the field, they are meeting people, they are interviewing people, they are doing more work, and then they sometimes come up with more knowledge, more connection. They suggest, can I do that? Can I do that? And it sometimes becomes overwhelming. I said, no, I can invite only one. And then we had to decide, like, you vote which one. And then we invited the guest speaker. And that's how you see the students are connected more with the reality. They meet people, they talk to people. Sometimes it's scary for us, they know more than us. So here another problem, like academic service learning, even the traditional approach, has got potential to enhance the learning outcomes, even if you don't make it inquiry based. Yes, it is a fact. Once someone serves, there are very high chances they learn something. Now, the good part about inquiry based approach is the impact on research. Now, you might feel like I am out of my mind. Why in the world I put the graph here? Are you thinking that? Yeah? All right. So, okay. So, the whole point of this graph is most of the time till this date, I was more into quantitative research. I am new for the qualitative research. So, when I do the quantitative research, how many of you have done some kind of quantitative research? Like that includes numbers. So, those people know very well what I am saying. When you are doing quantitative research, what you do is there is variable x and variable y, and this is the connection. And what happens to this little dot? We don't see this. This doesn't exist in the world, okay? So, in the sense that if there is a relationship between profits and ethics, in general, more collaboration leads to less profit. If this is the relationship, there may be some exceptions, right? And what do we do in quantitative research to the exceptions? Close our eyes. No, this does not exist. Now, we can use our inquiry-based approach to figure out what are the exceptions. We as a class, we study the exceptions. How come this particular organization collaborated with many different organizations and still make excellent profits? This is a kind of outlier that does not fit here in my data. So, what's so good about this outlier? And how can we study? Each of our students develop some cases. They make analysis, they study the problem in their own context, and that gives us a real rich data to make the research more applicable in real life context, right? So, this is how inquiry based approach does not only enhance the learning outcome, it also enhances the research impact, it also enhances the consulting impact in the sense the ideas, the bright new ideas of different people, how those ideas inform the practice. Like the students, so in a way it plants the seeds of purpose and makes the dream more meaningful. It generates more idea for the non-profits who's involved with us. Done? All right. Yeah, so okay, so one last thing, if I have some time. Like when I was teaching the course in the first class, we told students, do some homework and come, decide what you want to do, all right? But you know what happens? You know the class, right? 13th century class. Some people do the homework and come, and some people are completely blind. So our community partner came and asked, all right, what you guys will be doing? And I had a group of students who were completely blank. They didn't know what they were doing. So, so my community partner, she's awesome. She says, why don't you do one thing? Your job is to make me look hip and cool, all right? You find ideas, what if I tell whatever you say to my boss, I should look super cool. That gave us such a big motivation to the laziest people of my class. They did the best work. And ultimately that work was so good. My community partner invited her boss in my class, and then she said, I don't want to take the credit, it won't be good on my part. It's they who made me look hip and cool. So it's not me, it's the students. And this is how you make the dreams more meaningful and you plant the seeds of purpose. So yeah, possible applications. We can have many different possible applications of this approach in many different fields. Will I teach the course again? Yes. I asked the student the same question. Will you do another service learning course? Yes, that was surprising. So, yes. So.
And I just want to, we are holding another session at 4 o'clock. In case you want to discuss it further or something, you know, we will be, both of us will be addressing this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.